are just awesome, fascinating people, kind of, but they're not really people. They're monkeys. And so a lot of you have heard the Burton Malkiel monkey story. Give me a yes in the chat if you've heard my monkey story with Burton Malkiel and the random walk theory of stocks and efficient markets. Okay, so a lot of you heard that story, and for those who haven't heard it, very quickly, I'll tell in 30 seconds. Burton Malkiel to test an important financial theory called the efficient markets hypothesis. He taught monkeys how to invest, and they invested by throwing darts at a wall. And basically, the conclusion was that these monkeys were able to make more money than some of the best experts on Wall Street, which was shocking to people because nobody believed that monkeys could actually do this. Everyone is under the false assumption that to invest, you have to go to, some fancy school. You have to spend $150,000 getting a bachelor's degree. You got to do all these other things. When really, these monkeys throwing darts at a wall were able to make more money than people who don't invest at all. And this sticks back to the point that I've really consistently mentioned to you guys that you can't work your way to wealth. You can't save your way to wealth. In a country that has inflation, where most of the wealth is going to a certain groups of people, like for example, Elon Musk is now worth almost $500 billion, things like that. You want to build your wealth by aligning your financial decision making with those who are able to master the economy, with those who are able to make the money. So I like to align my wealth with Silicon Valley. I aligned some of my wealth with Elon Musk when Tesla stock shot up through the roof. Guess who owned Tesla stock? Right? I talked to you guys about Tesla back when when the election happened. I said, okay, so this is a transfer of power. They're all bowing to King Elon now. The Jeff Bezos is and the Bill Gates is in it. And all these people that were enemies of Elon are now bowing to this guy because they acknowledge his power. Mark Zuckerberg is bowing to Trump and Elon. And so I said, okay, well, let me just buy some stock in the things that they own. And I believe that could actually work out. Nothing's guaranteed. And since that time, Tesla stock has gone just through the roof. It hit an all-time high. Musk's wealth hit an all-time high because he owns a large percentage of SpaceX and Tesla, and also crypto went way up. Bitcoin and all that hit an all-time high. And again, that's just because a lot of times wealth gets sort of swashed around in an economy based on who's in power. And so one of the principles of powernomics that I hope you'll kind of consider and think about is that Dr. Claude Anderson talks to you all on a regular basis about how wealth or how politics is really driven by economics. That the reason people fight for and jockey for position in these political races is so they can control the resources and get the money to the people that they care about. And so for us to sort of just say that politics is all about voting and believing that someone's going to come save you and not asking for anything in return, some would say that that's a flawed strategy because what you're doing is you're positioning yourself, you're volunteering to be a pawn in the game of politics and not a player. See, the players of the chessboard are different from the pawns. The pawns are just little pieces that get moved around, right? I manipulate you and get you to vote for this and vote for that. You're a pawn. The players are the ones who are buying the votes. The players are the ones who are providing the money. Elon Musk he's a player in the political game. He said, I'm going to spend $250 million buying votes, getting, all these, hillbillies in Appalachia to believe that Donald Trump is their savior. And then when he gets elected, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to make $80 billion in about 2 weeks. And that's what he did. He made about 80 billion. His wealth has gone up so high that literally he has more wealth than the number two and the number three people on the list combined. He has more wealth than Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates combined. That's where he is. And he was not in that position before the election. Now he's become the richest man, not just the richest man on earth, but they believe he's the richest man in all of human history now. In all of human history. They said even Mansa Musa, they estimated his wealth at being about 440 billion. They said Elon Musk is at 447 billion. And they say so they think he's the richest human being that has ever lived on this planet. And the crazy part is that that's just the beginning. Wait until he takes SpaceX public. Wait, SpaceX right now, um, uh, SpaceX is worth $350 billion. It's the most highly valued. It's the highest valued private company in the history of the world. He owns half of that company. When they go public, they could easily be worth $1 trillion. So that 350 could easily triple just like that. So his stake in SpaceX could literally triple in value if he just goes public and starts offering shares out in the public. That's how crazy this is, right? So when you're talking about the economics and the politics, you have to understand that they're deeply connected. Stop thinking that politics is all about gay rights or I don't know, like police shootings and stuff. It's deeper than that. It's not that these things don't matter, but it's so much deeper than that. It's really for the people at the top, it's really a money game, and they are the players, and they go to each other and they say, the crypto industry, for example, is having a big problem with regulation under the Biden administration. They were getting sued constantly, and they were being told that they couldn't do this and couldn't do that, and they felt like it was restricting the growth of the crypto industry. So what they did was they went in and they pulled their money together, and they said, "We're going to go buy Congress. We're going to go and spend money." Getting certain people elected and getting certain people out of office. And so they got about 300 different politicians out of office or and replaced them with pro crypto people, including the president of the United States, who's very pro crypto. And then suddenly the value of your crypto went crazy. A lot of you own, give me a yes in the chat if you own crypto. I'll give you guys a chance to answer. Give me a yes. How many of you own some Bitcoin, some XRP, some XLM, some Solana, some even Dogecoin? How many of you own some crypto? Because uh it's yeah, a lot of you do. I hope that some of you will consider it because all the indicators pretty much say crypto, especially Bitcoin, is going to go up in value. This is just big money in slow motion. This is happening in slow motion. It's wide out there right in front of you. And as much as you might want to be intimidated by the fact that Bitcoin's $100,000 right now, just wait till it becomes a million. So that means if I put $100 in Bitcoin, when it becomes a million, my 100 turns into 1,000. So stop thinking about the 100,000 and start thinking about the investment. Just stop thinking about how much it costs. Think about your stake in it, right? The price of a stock, the price of a coin, the price of all these things can be changed. You could take the price of a $400 stock and make it a $2 stock, just like that, without changing the value of the company. It's all about how you slice up the pizza. If I have a big pizza and it's cut into four slices, and someone says, "Well, those slices are too big," I can slice it. I can do 100 slices, but it's the same pizza. Nothing changes. It's just an illusion. Do you understand? Give me a yes if that's making sense to you. So don't get caught up in the 100,000 part. Get caught up in the fact that there's growth. There's expected growth in these industries. Again, this is not investing advice, but this is what I see. This is where I'm putting my family's money, and this is where I think the puck is moving. So let me get back to that story about when monkeys were taught to spend money. It was really fascinating experiment done by a Yale professor, and this Yale professor said, "I wonder what would happen if we started an economy that involved monkeys." And it was really interesting because at first the monkeys, they didn't know what money was. They gave them these little silver coins and they're like, what the hell is this? Then they were taught slowly but surely through various mechanisms that this money could be used to do things, just like with a child, right? Children don't know what money is. Like that old song, a child is born with no state of mind, blind to the ways of mankind. God is smiling on you, but he's frowning too, because only God knows what you go through. Y'all remember that? I think it was Grandmaster Flash, right? So basically, kids don't know what money is. They learn what money is, just like the monkeys. So the monkeys didn't know what money was. They were like, "What is this?" But then when they saw, "Oh, wait, money can buy me bananas. Money can buy me, other things. Money can get me grapes," and it was mostly about food for the most part. But what they eventually actually found eventually, which was hilarious, was that the monkeys started to act like humans when it came to the money. They started making crazy investments. They started to fight over money. Like so, when they would throw a big pile of money in the middle, all the monkeys would start kicking each other's asses to try to get to the money. Like, so imagine a bunch of people like at a Black Friday sale, or you look at families that fight over money. When you see families that suddenly get a big inheritance and there's no structured estate plan, then you're creating a fight. So when you don't think about your estate planning and you don't plan your legacy and plan your generational wealth, just know you're starting a fight. That's what you're doing. Take all the people that you love, all the people that look up to you, all the little nephews and cousins and siblings that love each other right now, and you die and you leave a leadership void by not giving any instructions on what to do with that money. Just understand you're starting a fight. So if you love your kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, everybody else, you will lay out the structure and you'll do it today. You'll lay out some sort of plan, like, okay, you're gonna get this, you're gonna get that. This is how we're gonna do this. You'll do that because if you die tomorrow and you leave no plan, you're basically causing people that love each other to hate each other. You're not just destroying wealth, you're destroying the mental health of the people in your family because now the siblings won't have each other's backs anymore. They'll be out in this world struggling all alone, and it'll be your fault. And I don't put nothing heavy on nobody today, but it'll be your damn fault because you did not leave a clear plan on what to do after you failed in your leadership. You left a leadership void. If you go around the world and you look at any community where there is a leadership void, you see fighting, you see civil war. Civil war happens when there is a leadership void. So, for example, has anybody watched the Game of Thrones sequel, House of Dragons? Anybody watch House of Dragons? House of Dragons is a great show. It's a sequel. It's part of the whole Game of Thrones thing. I highly recommend it. If you haven't watched Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, I think you would really love it. You just be patient, give it some time. And these are some crazy ass white people, but it's a great show. But anyway, in House of the Dragon, the whole show is basically about a leadership void. The king, the family is very powerful. They call the Targaryens. They have all these dragons, which is like a type of wealth. So they were very rich. They were very powerful. And the king dies, and he doesn't leave clear instructions on who's supposed to take over after he's gone. He doesn't say, "I want this person." And, actually, he did actually say he wanted one person, which was his daughter, which was untraditional because you're supposed to pick a guy, I guess, in these shows. But he said, no, my daughter is the most qualified. I want her to have everything. But then right before he died, he whispered to his wife something that was very confusing. And she said, no, I heard him say he actually wanted his son to take over. And it was complicated because I think it was like his second wife and she had a baby with him. So she's thinking about who's going to be in power after he dies. Just also, so she's thinking about her baby instead of his child that he had before he married her, right? So that creates a war. And the whole show, literally the whole damn every season of the show has been this civil war where one half of the family has been going to war with the other half of the family. And their family they're kind of like the black community where the only people that have the power to destroy a Targaryen is another Targaryen. Because the Targaryens have so much power, the only way they could be taken out was not by an outsider. They had to be taken out from the inside. So black people are kind of like that too. The only people that have the ability to destroy black people are black people. White people have been trying to destroy us for 400, 500 years. It hasn't worked. They're not very, no one can really do that. But I think that we have the power to destroy ourselves unlike anything else. And so for example, in real life, in my opinion, things like hip hop music, the power of our music and the way we worship the rappers, I think that's just destroyed our community unlike anything else. We talked about that yesterday. If you look at the mass promotion, the mass marketing of drug addiction, of violence, of financial irresponsibility, hatred for women, and ignorance, just blatant ignorance. That's what it is. I mean, remember, one of your greatest black leaders in America 5 years ago was Diddy. Diddy was seen as the guy. He was on the covers of magazines. He was the role model, right? And, and then you look at what this guy's being accused of. It's crazy, right? So anyway, going back to that, you have to make sure you have a clear plan, or you're leaving a void. Whenever there's a void, there's going to be a fight. So if you don't want your kids and grandkids and nieces and nephews fighting, then don't don't leave a void. Okay. All right. So anyway, by the way, I want to mention to everybody, you guys met Laura Key the other day. Lala, that's her name. She's an international real estate expert. She is actually doing something tomorrow on basically how to do all the little things to buy real estate and buy property. And so if you want to join her, they have something called the Fly Nubian Money Investment Club. And it's not just for women, it's taught by women though. And so they bring in the smartest black women around and they talk about all the things economic that you might want to know. So Laura Key is going to be the first speaker. She was here the other day. And what I'll do is I'll put the link in here if you want to do a trial in the club and come to the event tomorrow. It's flynubianmoneyclub.com. That's flynubianmoneyclub.com. And I'll also put the link in the chat if you guys want to take a look at it. And I'll text it out to you also. And if you want to get text notifications for this class, pull out your phone, text the word morning to the number 87948. So text morning to 87948. So here is the link for Laura's event tomorrow morning. You saw her the other day. She's really good at what she does, and you can feel free to go and join that session they're going to do tomorrow. All right, so to finish the story about the monkeys. We were talking about the monkeys that were taught by a Yale professor how to invest. Okay, so there's a professor named Dr. Keith Chen who conducted a study with a certain type of monkey called capuchin monkeys. I don't know what They are, exactly. But they taught them to use money as currency. The monkeys were trained to trade tokens for food, basically simulating e human economic behavior. Over time, what happened was the monkeys started to exhibit a lot of economic tendencies similar to humans, like they started to budget. And they also responded to price changes the way humans do. Like, so when you go to the grocery store and you get mad because the price of carrots is higher than it was last week, the monkeys were going through kind of the same thing. So what eventually happened was which was really interesting was that the monkeys actually started to buy hookers. They started to you have to so some of the monkeys would be like, hey, I know I got what you want. And you got what I want. So you got a couple of them little coins. Give me a couple of coins, and I'm gonna give you something special. And me love you long time. It got into that, right? So literally, the monkeys created an economy that was similar to what humans do. They literally were buying hookers. And so I guess they shut the experiment down at that point. But this really shows sort of the tendencies in terms of how human beings sort of interact with money and how money affects the human interaction that we have with each other, right? So if you think about money in terms of how it affects your life, I really see money as this tool, as this sort of mechanism that can create these incentives that lead to various forms of behavior in terms of also how you deal with each other, how you treat each other. So a couple that's married in a relationship where there's plenty of money is going to have a very different interaction than a couple in a relationship where there's very little money. And also, who you choose to mate with and partner with is deeply affected by the financial situation. There, if you look online right now, there's a lot of just monkey business going on right now in terms of a lot of back and forth about, 50-50 conversations, should she pay this and pay that? Or I expect a man to spend this much money if we go on our first date, things like that. And what I see when I think about this, because I think about this when I did research for my book Financial Lovemaking years ago. You can have a copy of the book, by the way, for free, an e-copy by going to boyceandalicia.com, boyceandalicia.com. I remember concluding when I finished that book and I walked away from it, I said, I think there's no way to get around the fact that one, money will always impact your relationships. You can't pretend like love is so great that money doesn't matter because you need money to survive in this economy. And then number two, I said there's something about the woman's need for security from the male that connects to his ability to provide financial security. And so, like just the other day, I was watching this movie about an AI robot or something, and some guy was basically saying that, yeah, I lost my job and Sarah left me, and of course she's going to leave me. I can't even pay for anything anymore. And this is and so as much as we want to get away from that and act like that shouldn't matter, or call someone a gold digger because they care about the financial security, I don't think that's realistic at all. I really don't. Even monkeys were responding to other monkeys differently based on how much money they had. The monkey that had the most money was the one who got the most favors, if you know what I mean. And so some scientific lessons from this experiment, where this Yale professor got the monkeys together and taught them how to use money, is one, they gained an innate understanding of trade. So he said even non-human primates grasp the concept of exchanging value, something for something, quid pro quo. Dr. Claude Anderson uses this term a lot. So basically, they said that this suggested that trade is a fundamental aspect of intelligent behavior. That intelligent behavior says that when you are engaged with other people, there's going to be some sort of implicit trade that takes place. It's not very romantic. We want to all believe that we should just give without expecting anything in return ever. But you can't really operate like that because if you keep giving and not receiving, then you're going to be depleted. And so Dr. Claude Anderson, when he talks about how the Europeans took all the wealth of Africa, one thing that he talks about is bad trade. He talks about I think he called it the doctrine of unequal exchange. So in Africa, they saw that Africa had all the resources, all lots of gold and minerals and other things that the Europeans valued, and the Europeans got all the valuable stuff. And the Africans, they'd get like, they give them a couple of old guns and a Bible and just some trinkets or whatever. And so in Dr. Anderson's opinion, there was an uneven exchange that occurred between the Africans and the Europeans, which is why uh, basically Africa made Europe rich. The Europeans were struggling financially before they ran into the Africans. After they discovered Africa and started to visit Africa and go take things from Africa, they became very, very wealthy. That's how Europe became the wealthiest continent on the planet, is because of all the resources that exist in Africa. The other thing that they learned, so trade and exchanging of value, they claimed in this study is just a fundamental part of human nature. So when you go through life expecting something for nothing, you're probably going to be disappointed. And if you're not getting what you feel like you deserve, this particular study says that it's because you're not offering something of equal value, right? So if I am going out and I'm in the job market, like, so whenever I hear men complaining about women having, um, baby, I cannot read your handwriting. My wife writes me these notes while I'm teaching, and she puts stuff here, and I have no idea what she's saying. And she shushes me because she doesn't want y'all to know that she's over here shushing me as she wrote. I can't read this. Oh, yeah, yes, it is up. See, that's us. All right. So anyway, I love you too. Okay, so basically, if you think about it, right? Like, again, because I'm an economist, here's how I process things, right? So I hear a guy who's like, yeah, these women, their expectations are too high, and they don't, you do this and this and this for them, and they don't appreciate it, and blah 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 blah, and my first thought is like, okay, so that doesn't tell me so much about how bad, how unfair the world is. It really tells me more about who you're trading with. Like, okay, well, what women are you choosing to trade with? Because it sounds to me that what you're offering isn't of significant value to the people that you're offering it to. Like, if I come to you and I say, hey, baby, why don't you treat me right? I'm an intelligent man. I got a PhD. Well, maybe that's because I'm interacting with a woman who doesn't value education. Maybe she doesn't value PhDs. Maybe she would like me better if I was a thug that had a gun on my hip where I was going out robbing people. Which probably means I need to go pick someone different, right? Like my wife had a father who was a professor, like I am, and so she values smart guys. Right. And I, when I first met her, I thought she was like all the other girls. They all like the big, tall, big, strong athletes. I'll never be 6 feet tall. I keep on waiting. I know that there's like a segment of women who say, I will only date a man over 6 feet tall. I respect that. I think that's a little bit confusing, honestly, because most men are not 6 feet tall. Only, I think maybe 12, 15% or something like that. So I'm like, how 80% of y'all gonna fight over the top 15% of men? Y'all gonna be sharing a lot, ain't you? But I don't know. But again, I'm not judging, right? So I'll never be 6 feet tall. I was athletic in high school, but I was not athletic enough to compete at the college level or the professional level. And she would meet guys. So I just assumed that that was the preference. But after we got to know each other, her father was a professor. So she said, I cannot hang around a stupid man. I do not want a man who is ignorant and dumb. I don't care what he looks like. And but that's a particular preference. So what that meant was suddenly I had an advantage over the tall guys. I had an advantage over the athletic guys because, you might be in the NBA, but I have a PhD in finance, right? So I'm kind of like the Michael Jordan of finance, right? So I can flex on that, right? That's my flex. So ultimately, who you trade with really matters extensively when it comes to the value of your trade and what you get in exchange. And the most extreme example I can think of right now would be you guys heard about that guy who bought the banana taped to a wall for $6.2 million. You remember that, right? We talked about that. Well, let me ask you this. Give me a yes or no. How many of you would even pay $62 for a banana taped to a wall? Not 6.2 million. Give me a yes or no if you would pay $62 for a banana taped to a wall. I see a lot of no's. Levon and Amber and Karen and Gwendolyn and Nicola and Ida and Pacola. I see a lot of no's, right? So the question might become, well, is that banana taped to a wall really worth $6.2 million? Well, if I ask anybody in this room, you're all going to say no. Hell to the no, no. But here's the thing about value. Everybody doesn't have to see the value of the thing that you're selling. You only need one person to see it. It only has to be valuable to one person. It didn't matter if 99.9% of the world would never pay $6.2 million for a banana. That meant nothing after the trade took place. What only thing that matters is that they found one guy. They found the one guy willing to pay $6.2 million for that banana. So if you ask someone like an economist and you say, what's the economic value of a banana taped to a wall in a painting, as long as it's authentic, the economist will say, well, it must be 6.2 million because that's what somebody paid for it. Do you understand? And so even when you talk about your worth and your value, like I hear people say all the time, well, I have to know my worth. I got to get my worth. And I'm like, well, okay, well, who's deciding what your worth is going to be? And if you're looking for someone who's going to give you maximum value for your worth, you have to find a market for that product. So the people at Sotheby's who sold the auction house that sold the banana tape to a wall for $6.2 million had to go through an exhaustive search all around the world for all the people who collect art uh, in such an extreme fashion that they might pay $6.2 million for this banana. There was a search process. If they'd went on the street corner and said, "Hey, we got a banana taped to a wall, it's worth 6.2 million, but we'll sell it for 90% off," they wouldn't have had a single sale. So it would be easy to walk away from that situation and say, "Well, of course, this thing's not worth 6.2 million. The biggest offer you got was $1.50. You're crazy to think that this thing's worth more." But what actually is happening is that you haven't created enough of a market to find that person that's willing to pay that price. So a lot of times when you get into situations like you get into a relationship and someone doesn't see your worth, some would argue, an economist would argue, that you probably didn't do a big enough search to find the people that can see that value, that really want to trade with you at that level. And it may not be everybody, and you only need that one person. Like if you talk about getting married and having somebody see your worth that you marry, you only need one person. You don't need everybody to think you're beautiful, just the person you picked. Right. And what I think happens a lot of times, this is just if you want to circle this back into the economics of Black relationships, a lot of times people don't see our worth because you don't do an exhaustive enough search to find that person that's going to value you at an optimal level. You met somebody, they were nice to you, you went on a couple of dates, you started having sex. Next thing you know, that's your baby daddy or your baby mama or your husband or your wife or whatever, right? Well, I can just tell you the truth. Because I've been an economic thinker for a long time. Remember, I was a really good finance student, and I started teaching finance when I was 22 years old. I always thought about markets and searching when it came to everything in my life. When it came to searching for a job, if you don't see my worth, that's okay. I'll go search until I find someone who does. When it came to dating, oh, you don't see my worth, that's okay. I'm gonna go keep marketing myself until I find somebody that can value a 5'8" guy who's gonna get a PhD, who's one day gonna make a lot of money, who also talks a lot, right? Whatever it is that I am, right? I needed to find that. I wasn't gonna just drop myself into different situations and then get frustrated because you don't see my worth. Because to some extent, the rarer you are, the more you kind of become like the $6.2 million banana that's taped to a wall. That's what I am. I'm probably like a banana that's taped to a wall. I am an acquired taste. I am something that where there are going to be lots of spaces where people won't see my worth. There are lots of spaces where people see me as a liability more than an asset. And so I said I have to spend time finding the space where who I am and what I offer is valued. And I've kind of pretty much found that space. I come in here and I talk to you. You value me. I hope that's the case because I value you, right? But the whole world don't value me, but it don't matter what the whole world thinks. If I'm the banana taped to the wall, I just need to find somebody who sees the value in that piece of art. Because actually there are rational, logical, economic reasons to explain why that banana taped to a wall was worth so much. There's a whole set of theories. There's a prospect theory and all kinds of theories that explain it literally logically. A lot of you look at it and say, why would you pay that much for it? No, well, because there's an art market. And pay attention, think about it like this. The first person who bought the banana taped to the wall paid like $150,000. So if you paid $150,000 for an asset and then that asset was sold for 6.2 million, did you make a profit? Yes or no? Was that a smart investment? Yes or no? Yes. You spent 150, you made 6.2 million. Touchdown. You won. So when you talk about these things like seeing your value, seeing your worth, these are really complex ideas, and people don't see how complex they are. They'd rather just sit and complain about it. When really, if you understand markets and how markets work and efficient markets and all that, you see it in a completely different way. So when I see all these conversations about relationships and men get mad about what women are doing and women get mad because men don't do this and do that, I literally start seeing it in a specific way. Like, okay, you're not really telling me about the world, you're telling me about yourself. You're telling me about your choices. You're telling me about where you position yourself. Because if you're at a job and you tell your boss, I'm worth $100,000 a year, but you're only paying me 60, one of my questions would be, why are you spending so much time arguing with your boss when really you should be out engaging the world so you can go search and find that company that will pay you what you're really worth? But instead, you're somehow trying to convince your boss to see your worth when he may not ever see it because the worth that you truly have to someone else may not be the worth he has for you. Like, for example, if someone offered to sell me LeBron James and said you could have a personal LeBron James play basketball in your backyard and you can watch him play basketball all day, how much would you pay for that? I would probably say nothing because I can watch LeBron for free on TV. I don't have to pay money to see him. It doesn't, it's not that important to me. And if someone's like, well, no, 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 this is LeBron James. He's worth $100 million. He gets $30 million a year. Why wouldn't you want to pay that? Pay at least $10,000 a year for this. I'd be like, no, because his worth is only $100 million or whatever it is if he's playing for the Lakers on TV, working for the NBA, because they can extract enough value out of his performance to make it a good investment. For me, that's not. I don't get any benefit financially from having a big 6'8" guy playing basketball in my backyard. So my worth for a LeBron James is not going to be the same as their worth. So rather than arguing with me all day, and LeBron knocking on my door every day and saying, "How come you don't see my worth? How come you don't see my value? You oppressing me. You mistreating me. That ain't right." Instead, he should say, I'm gonna go call up the Lakers because they can see my worth and they're going to offer me something that is more consistent with what I believe that I can acquire in the public market. Do you follow what I'm saying? Does that make sense? This is so I'm just telling you, when you get in situations where people don't see your worth, you need to leave. Not so much. I'm not telling you go dump your girlfriend or your boyfriend. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm saying if somebody doesn't see your worth, it doesn't mean that they're crazy and stupid. It doesn't mean that you're worthless. It's like the worst thing that people that heard people say to each other, like, well, if I don't want you, nobody will. Just stupid stuff like that. Don't listen to stuff like just go and create a market for yourself. See, you don't understand. The reason the United States is the richest country on earth is heavily driven by one important thing that we've been able to create in America that other countries haven't created as well. And that is public markets. Our ability to maintain public and efficient markets literally is a massive wealth driver in America and gives America an unprecedented amount of economic power that other countries cannot match. The reason Elon Musk's wealth increased by $80 billion when he won or when he and Trump won the election is not because somebody put $80 billion in his pocket. It's because the markets increased the value of his stock, which increased his net worth. And that valuation is simply the market's perception of Elon Musk's worth. It does not mean everyone believes he's worth $440 billion. It doesn't mean he can go write a check for $440 billion. He cannot do that. It means that there's somebody out there, and you only need the highest bidder. You don't need everybody else. Just like you only need the people that value you. You don't need your haters. You don't need the people that don't see your worth. They don't matter. All that matters is having the highest bidder. Because the highest bidder, if you look at the price of a stock, the price that you see on the market is literally the price that only one guy was willing to pay for that stock. It's the price of the highest bidder. For every one bidder, there's 1,000 other people that were willing to bid a lower price who said, yeah, the stock is, you want 700, I'll give you 650. I'll give you 600. I'll give you 550. I'm not paying more than 550. Those people don't matter. Valuation is determined by the price of the trade. That's it. When that one person wins the auction and bids the price, that becomes the new price. So when you talk to me about what your worth is, that's a long conversation because that's very, very arbitrary. And really, the best answer at the end of the day is that your worth is whatever the highest bidder is willing to offer you. And if you don't find who the highest bidder is, then you will probably be living at a level that is below your worth. Like we talk about how making money and saving money means living below your means. Well, a lot of y'all, because you are afraid to venture into the world and to explore and to try new things, you've been living below your worth for a very long time. You've been in relationships where the person did not see your worth. You've been on jobs where they did not see your worth. You're in lots of situations where people don't see your worth because you're not finding those people that truly see the value that you bring to the table. So don't talk to me. Don't even get into these. I don't even want to even have these goofy, elementary, retarded. I'm sorry, I used the word retarded. I shouldn't use that word. I know that that's a bad word now. But it's goofy to me. These goofy conversations about what do you bring to the table? What do you bring to the? Shut up. That's just like, like I always bring something to the table. You just may not see the value of what I bring to the table. And if I sit here and argue with you and try to prove to you that I'm bringing something to the table, that's not your fault that you can't see what I bring to the table. It's my fault for not bringing to the table the stuff that someone else is going to value when I bring it to the table. So if I bring something to the table and I bring Boyce Watkins to the table, and you say, well, what are you bringing to the table? You're not even 6 feet tall. You're not in the NBA. You're not a thug, whatever it is. I'm not gonna sit and argue with you about that. I'm gonna say that's okay if you don't see what I'm bringing to the table. I'm just gonna take what I'm bringing. I'm gonna take it to another table. That's what you do. You take it to another table. You don't argue about it. It's a goofy argument to me. Um, it's a goofy argument. It's because what you're really seeing is just a mismatch. You're really seeing mismatches. And when you see a mismatch, the best thing you do when you're mismatched with the person that you're sitting across from the table with is you get up and you both walk to a different table where you're going to be in alignment in terms of values. So when you talk about like, or even those goofy conversations that Kevin Samuels used to have about high value men and high value women, it's like if you understand economics, which I have a PhD in finance, which is the sister of economics, you'll know that valuation is complex. No one person can tell the whole world what the value of somebody is or an asset is. No one person can do that. You can only speak from your own perspective. If I tell you what a high value woman is, I can't tell you what a high value woman is unconditionally. I can only tell you what Boyce thinks is a high value woman. And so the idea that people would just get engaged in those goofy conversations is very frustrating for someone like me because it's like you don't understand the area I was focused on in my doctoral program was this thing called asset pricing, which is basically how do you value an asset? And when I tell you that asset pricing is far deeper than you can ever imagine, I'm not kidding. There's a ton of math behind it, perspectives, various theories. So don't you ever dare, and I'm gonna close it up with this point. Don't you ever dare let anybody tell you what your value is. Don't do that because your value is determined. When they say beauty's in the eye of the beholder and all this other stuff, that's really true. Value is determined in the eye of the beholder. What one person values may not be what someone else values. So if you're not feeling valued, then find a better market. Because if that guy selling the $6.2 million banana tape to a wall had allowed the value of his art to be defined by the people in front of him, he wouldn't have even gotten 150 bucks for that. But the fact that he expanded the market, he went to the art collectors, he went to people who might see the value, whether it's there or not, that allowed him to get $6.2 million for that banana. But if he didn't understand markets, he would have gotten nothing for that. So learn markets, learn investing, learn what valuation really looks like in different ways to perceive it. And I guarantee you that will heavily impact your wealth. Because remember that when somebody talks about what a stock price is, that's not the price for everybody. That's the price for the highest bidder. That's all that it means. I'm done talking about that. I'm not going to keep on drilling this point. I hope that this makes sense. I hope that this discussion has helped you. All right. So one of the things I want to mention quickly is on Monday, we are doing an event for Dr. Boyce Real Estate. If you want to join our real estate investment club and do a free trial, you can go to drboycerealestate.com. There's a lot of material in there, a lot of curriculum, a lot of stuff in there. We save everything. So feel free to go to drboycerealestate.com. Also, I sent you all a link to take a look at the financial flashcards that we actually have for my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. I created the flashcards so you could teach the concepts to your kids in a straightforward way. I guarantee you that any child who learns the 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power is going to be financially strong when they become adults. There's no question about it. These are simple ideas that I spent a decade thinking through, that I know that if these simple ideas are applied in any family, it's going to have a dramatic impact on your wealth. And I wrote it specifically for Black people. So if Black people are not interested, then then no one will be. But a lot of you have been interested. I know a lot of you bought copies of the book. So if you want to take a look, if you go to drboycebooks.com, there are flashcards that go with the book. So feel free to take a look at that. The other thing I want to mention really quickly, just to close up this discussion about the monkeys, is is that one of the things that they learned when they taught monkeys how to engage in commerce and how to use money for different things like investing, saving, budgeting. They were even buying prostitutes and all this other stuff. They found that monkeys show that human beings have this innate sense of trade, this innate sense of quid pro quo, and that's something that they learned that even applies to monkeys. Second thing they learned is that just like humans, monkeys can make irrational decisions when it comes to their money. We've talked in class about something called irrational exuberance. Irrational exuberance is basically when the markets are going crazy and you see stocks going up and all that, and people start investing in just about anything. And that's happening right now. I mean, right now you've got things out here that aren't worth anything that people are still willing to invest in. Also, scammers can sense irrational exuberance. And so what they do is they lean on your greed to get you to sign up for things like blessing looms or Ponzi schemes that ultimately are going to crumble. But because you have some hope that you're going to possibly have a quick flip or that your money's going to grow really fast, that's what leads you to jump into it. In fact, the scammers who pretend to be Boyce Watkins, again, be very careful about that. There's thousands of these people out here. I don't know. I'm not even that important. I don't know why so many people do this, but if you go to TikTok, there's like 50 Boyce Watkins accounts. I try to block them all because they'll try to friend all my friends and then they'll go into the inbox and pretend to be me. The tactic they typically use is they lean on your greed. They lean on your greed and your trust. So they say, so you're talking to them. They're like, oh, there's Dr. Boyce. I trust Dr. Boyce. And then they'll say they'll use certain language. They'll say, "Hey, brother, have you invested in crypto?" And then what they'll do is they'll say, "Give me $500 and I can help you turn it into $50,000 in a month." Or something. I will never say anything that crazy to you ever. I've told you all that the investing involves risk, markets crash, and that it's the long-term money that is the sturdy money, not the short-term money. Short-term fast money typically does not happen. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And so based on that, that's how they get people to go ahead and put a little money in, and next thing you know, the person disappears and they take their money. Now, and if they think that you are an even better target, they'll keep on coming back and come back with something more each time or whatever it is that they do. And it's really sad. It makes me sad. So please be careful because these people are out there, and I don't want them to hit you. And what they're leaning on is irrational investing behavior that people engage in, especially when the markets are really strong. The third thing they learned is a little bit about risk and reward dynamics. So they found that monkeys can actually weigh the risk and the reward for a lot of their investments, just like humans do when it comes to gambling or investing. And really, some degree of risk is critical if you want to be able to build wealth. You know how they always say, scared money don't make money? Well, the opposite of greed in investing is fear. Fear and greed tend to destroy wealth. And so one of the things that traumatized people have to deal with is a lot of fear. You have a lot of fear of loss, and that fear of loss keeps you from trying new things. The fear of loss keeps you from investing. The fear of loss keeps you from exploring new territory. So basically, monkeys have that risk reward trade-off. But what happens is it varies from individual to individual based on something they call it a utility function. And a utility function, all that is utility is bigger than money. Utility is like just a measure of happiness. That's why I tell you all that money is not the be all end all when it comes to investing. Most investments that you make have nothing to do with money, and most investments that you make, you might put money into something, and someone will say, "Well, why would you invest in that? You're not getting any money back." Well, that's not a smart thing for them to tell you, in my opinion, because what you might be getting back is something more important than money. You may be getting some type of satisfaction back. You may be getting some type of long-term benefit. Maybe you're networking with this money that you're spending, whatever it is, right? Getting something that you value, and that would be called utility. So utility actually is more important than money in terms of like measuring economic outcomes and how economies work and how people think about investing in money. And the thing about utility is that everybody has this utility function, and it kind of looks like this. You draw it mathematically, and the more they have this thing called concavity, and it's all it is it's like this thing that measures how you respond to risk. That's it. So think of it as just like everybody's utility function. And if you think about it like a mathematical function, like a graph, everybody's graph looks different. And so they have people that have what you call risk seeking behavior. These are people that like risk, maybe people that love gambling and are gambling addicts and stuff like that. And there's a lot of that, by the way. I mentioned that to you that gambling addiction is a growing problem in America. And it really disturbs me that Club Shay Shay Shannon Sharp, Joe Budden, and people like that, they use a lot of black men in these gambling commercials. And when I tell you that they're gonna definitely take $1 trillion out of the black community and destroy hundreds of thousands of black families from the promotion of gambling, I'm not playing because black men love sports. We watch ESPN. We want to see how the Cowboys are doing this year. We want to see how how our favorite basketball team is doing. So we watch these shows every day. We watch, and then we watch the sporting events attached to it. Now that they're promoting gambling in these sporting events, if you notice, in most of these gambling ads, they're putting black men in these ads because black men are the biggest suckers when it comes to tricking away your money through gambling. And I say it like that because a gambling addiction is worse than an addiction to crack. That literally, if you want to talk about something, you ever want to get in a hole so deep that you want to jump off a building, go become a gambling addict because gambling is tricky. It'll fool you. Like you go into a hole and you get tricked into believing that this is going to be the next time that's going to get me out of it. So, but in order to get out of the hole, I got to do like double or nothing. I have to bet more than I've ever bet before. And what happens is that it becomes this almost exponential economic explosion, except it's like negative. It's like this big explosion of shit where literally next thing you know, you're making $50,000 a year, but you owe $250,000 to a bookie or whatever, and then you don't have a way out of that, right? You're like, how in the hell am I going to get $250,000 when I only make $50,000 a year? And that's when people start to drill into have these emotional problems that come with that, and it's kind of terrible. I mean, a lot of people have taken their lives over this on a regular basis. So I don't know why they made it legal and why they're pushing it like this. It's sad to me because there's going to be a lot of pain that comes from that. And if you're in this category, if you're mixed up in this stuff, I don't want to make you feel bad. I just have to tell you the truth. The studies show that this type of addiction is absolutely destructive. And again, now remind you though, I've dabbled, I've had fun. I bet on the Super Bowl, right? Or whatever. But one of the things that does make it different for me a little bit is being a 53-year-old man who's seen this, in its worst form. I'm not their target audience. Their target audience is young men, because young men have a lot of confidence. They're overconfident, highly ambitious, high testosterone. So men between the ages of 20 and 35 are probably the biggest targets, and so they're using all these men to promote these sports betting sites. So again, like the Joe Buttons and the Shannon Sharps and all this other stuff, and it makes me sad because a lot of money is going to get lost this way. And I'm not making anybody feel bad, but it's just the truth. If you don't believe me, just look it up online. It's going to get worse. Eventually, some athlete or two or three or 10 is going to get caught up in some sort of gambling scandal. It's happening right now. It's just not being reported yet. It hasn't been discovered yet. But mark my word, in the next 1 to 2 years, some major athlete's going to get caught up in some big scandal involving gambling. It's going to be a complete mess. This has already happened before. This happened in history already. They're just repeating history. All right, so a few more things about the monkeys and the use of money is that they find that monkeys also, when they introduce money to monkeys, it altered their social dynamics. So the monkeys that had the most money became the most powerful monkeys in the group. It also emphasized how currency can influence moral and social behavior in the community. So money is powerful in the sense that money can also make you look at something that's bad and you justify it and assume that it's good, or like a pastor who takes money from a politician and then starts to preach something very different. So money can make a good pastor walk away from the Bible. Money can cause lots of ethical boundaries to be crossed. And so when you look at what happens in America, a capitalist society where money is your religion, where money is worshiped in America, you can really explain a lot of the craziness that happens in America by the money. Like if you follow the money, you can usually find the motive. Money is typically the motive in a lot of these chaotic situations. So they found that with monkeys, it was pretty much the same thing. So with money, it's very important to have some because money will give, if you use it properly and you're conscious about it, it can make you very powerful. It can allow you to get things done. I told you I became a much more handsome man when I started to make money, and my jokes were very, very funny to the women that I met. I wasn't never that funny, but I suddenly became hilarious because I had money in my pocket and it was cool. It was great. Being 31, 32 years old is pretty awesome. But over time, I started to also see where money can put you into tough situations, and it also can be very tempting to want to be around people that have money just because they have money. So Diddy, his number one weapon of choice was money. The fact that he was a billionaire and that he was very powerful made lots of people want to be around him, which gave him a ready, steady supply of victims. And no matter how many people ran out of his house screaming and telling their story, their Diddy story, there was always some other unwilling victim who's like, well, it's going to be different for me, right? So ultimately, I would encourage you to just really kind of think about these things when you look at money. Money's very, very powerful. I think someone asked, when did I buy my first stock? I don't even remember when. It was a long time ago. But I've been a believer in the stock market for a long time. So I would encourage you to to learn stock market investing if you haven't done it yet, because I think it makes a big difference. The $5 a day plan, if you want to go take a look at that and get started investing, it's at blackwealthmasterplan.com. That's totally free. Go to blackwealthmasterplan.com. And the $5 a day plan is explained and laid out in terms of how to get started investing. So if you're not buying stock right now consistently, I hope you'll do that. That's the one thing I ask. Like we get up every day and we talk about money. We do this class. You don't have to pay to be here, but I would really just ask you to start buying stock and do something for your family. That would make me feel much, much better. So feel free to go to blackwealthmasterplan.com if you haven't done it yet. Also, if you want to get on the text list to get notified when we start class every morning at 10 a.m., just text the word morning on your phone to the number 87948. So text morning to 87948. And James says, or someone says, I want to learn stock options. It wasn't James, it was someone else. Your stuff is coming through pretty quickly. If you want to learn stock options, I would say go to drboyceprime.com. The Prime program, everybody seems to like it. So feel free to go to drboyceprime.com. We're going to have a Prime meeting again soon, and I will finish the Moneymaker grid today, and I'll send that out again today so you guys can see which options or which stocks have the best options. In fact, today's Friday, and if I had time, I'd actually do a session because today is the day that a lot of your options expire. And I think that's a day where I want to start us talking a little bit more. All right, guys. So anyway, have a good day. It was great to see you, and thank you for listening. And I'll see you all tomorrow morning. And have a wonderful day. Take